Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode here at the Life and Business Trailblazer community. I am your host, Daniela G, and this is...
And me?
Latoya.
Latoya B.
Latoya B, and we are so glad that you are here embarking on another trail with us. Today, we are so honored and excited to have my new friend, actually our new friend, Chelsea Haines, who is here to talk to us about trusting our gut. And for some of us who have some gut issues, I'm actually very excited and, certainly looking forward to learning more from you and more about what you do in this community. And so welcome to the podcast, Chelsea.
Thank you so much, Daniela and Latoya. It's really an honor to be here. I'm so super grateful for your time. And I, too, am excited to talk all the things gut health and intuition and how they come together.
So typically before we officially kick off the podcast, we have an icebreaker question. And the purpose of this question is really just to get all of us really loose before we engage in a thought-provoking conversation. And so I will go ahead and turn the floor to Latoya, who will be posing today's question.
So Chelsea, if you were given the chance to learn a new skill within an instant, what would it be?
Definitely to play the drums. I love a good beat. There is nothing better than that feeling like through your body when the beat drops and when you can just move and groove. And even just talking about it, I maybe I was a musician in a past life, or maybe hopefully I will be in a future life. But if I could learn the drums like this, or any instrument, I should say, but the drums primarily, that would be awesome.
Wow. So is it safe to say that you really enjoy dancing as well?
Oh, yeah. And I've also learned that actually dancing, and particularly twerking, I'm really good at. And it has gotten me through quarantine, and it is a lot of fun.
Oh my goodness, Latoya, like I was just telling you that I really want to learn how to twerk. So maybe Chelsea.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is all about the chakras and just like letting it flow and not overthinking it.
Right. I feel like for me, if I could learn any skill, oddly, I would love to actually learn how to get a British accent. I feel like it's like the prettiest accent that I have heard. And so I would love to be out here just saying, cheerio, hello. So it's like, if I could accumulate anything, I think it would be a British accent.
Awesome. For me, I think if I could learn a new skill, it definitely would be Forex trading. See,
she's got a smart skill over here. We're over here just like, we'll do our thing. Latoya's like, no, I'm going to learn a skill that's going to help me make money.
Right. I need the money.
Yes.
I mean, because I also believe too, like Latoya, you and I have talked about this as well. It's just like financial independence is a very important thing, especially for millennials. And so being that you're very money mindset focused, it's a very beautiful thing to see, especially in millennials nowadays, is someone who is just focused about their future. So kudos to you. So, all right, let's go ahead and jump into the segment of the show where I kind of just like read a little bit of your bio. And Chelsea, I definitely ask that you fill in any gaps that I have not covered. But Chelsea Haines is a gut health coach. She helps female entrepreneurs to heal their gut so they can trust their intuition and live the most downstream and abundant life while navigating all of the pressure of life with ease. And I loved reading this, especially because I sometimes have gut issues and I'm also a female entrepreneur. So being that you are focused on a very like niche industry is beautiful. And I certainly would love for you to kind of fill in the gaps because I'm sure there is more to you. You seem to be a very free spirit and someone who is very intentional about what you do. So please fill us in on more on who you are, Chelsea.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, ladies. Yeah, it's really exciting to me when I hear someone resonate with what I'm doing, because really for me, it's been a process of unlearning and undoing all of the beliefs and all of what I learned or what I thought success was growing up. And, I grew up in an Irish Catholic family where we didn't really talk about feelings. We just drank them under the rug. And, the path to success was go to college, eventually get married, have 2.5 kids and a white picket fence, and then someday retire and be happy. And, my parents divorced when I was young. My mom had to file bankruptcy. We were near homeless for a little while. And I feel really grateful for my life experiences that led me down a journey of really having to dig deep into my own personal life traumas. And when I reflect back, a lot of those, what I now call like undigested emotions in my life, of course, very much pun intended, manifested as physical issues in my body. And I'm sure you ladies will relate to this as well, as most of us can, that if there are things that are happening in our life and we just brush them under the rug, or we numb out from them, or we are not coping with those stressors in a really healthy way, our body is going to react. And, especially in a world, just like what you said, Daniela and LaToya, your mindfulness, your money mindfulness is like so inspiring to me, because growing up, I was a little bit before the millennials. I'm an 80s baby, but still, it's not to age myself, but whatever. Having that money mindset was so important, coming from a broken family, coming from homelessness, seeing the struggle of my single mother and 2 young children. To this day, she still works 2 jobs 20 years later. It was so important for me to be able to rewrite that story. And part of that for me, I think, in becoming a yoga teacher and really starting to learn and understand the connection between mind, body, and spirit in a really cohesive and physical and visceral kind of way, where I could really feel it in my body when I aligned my body to my emotions and, my thoughts and my behaviors and my habits and all these different things, that I was never going to be able to reach the level of entrepreneurial success that I personally wanted in my life if I didn't take a hold of these physical things in my body that I was experiencing every single day. And for me, it manifested as autoimmune disease and rashes on my skin. So it was a very blatant thing. I felt all sorts of feelings around it, and it was itchy and uncomfortable. And it got to a point where it was like, man, I am waking up tired and already planning when I can go back to bed when my alarm goes off in the morning. If I don't do something about what's happening in my body, how can I possibly show up for anybody else in my life? And it's been an 11-year journey to discovering what that means. And I feel so grateful now that on the other side, my true calling and passion in this life is to help women heal, and really to throw out that diet mentality and to really look at body positivity in a way that's, we even dig deep into that, because I think the diet culture that we've lived in can be so toxic on so many levels. And it doesn't have to be that way. Like, we can be our whole selves and we can feel good in our skin. And it doesn't matter how we look as long as we're feeling good. And if we're not feeling good, then it's impossible to show up as a mother or an entrepreneur or a wife or whoever, a daughter, a sister, a friend. How can I show up for anybody else if I can't even show up for myself? So that's sort of like, I went on a little bit longer than I intended to, but that's really sort of where this passion has come from. And, moving forward now, I really help women on a one-on-one basis and also in group offerings, which of course allows it to be more affordable to be able to help more people and also to really have that impact. Because for me, I love measurable results. I don't know about y'all, but like when I start on a journey, I like to be able to see the results and reap the rewards of my hard work. So I feel like if I had found somebody like me 10 years ago, it would have been a little bit of a different and maybe quicker journey. Maybe not different, but maybe quicker journey. So that's where I'm at now.
Yeah. And I love something that you said in your response. And I think that for me, what I realize is that I used to associate like lack of expressing emotions only to Caribbean culture, because I was born in Haiti, but I was raised in the States. And so growing growing up, my parents didn't really show a lot of expression. Like, you knew that they loved you, but they weren't like huggy fiddly, holding your hand, asking you how your day went. Like, they weren't like that. And so what I'm realizing and kind of hearing you speak is that that's a universal thing. Like, I think that everyone in every single culture in some way has experienced that, where someone in their family just didn't really express emotions. And what I'm realizing is that this affects us when we are growing into our adulthood, stage, where we sometimes may have like abandonment issues, and we have hard times in kind of like staying in relationships, with people, because we're so accustomed to the lack of something. And so I just really like how you express that this is something that I experience. And so I'm learning that I also have to like show up for myself. And it's just so beautiful. It's a very beautiful message. And like, for me, I resonate with that because I've experienced that in my life.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I'd love to add just a couple little things there, if you don't mind. I really feel like it's also a generational thing, right? When you think of our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents who came out of like Great Depressions, scarcity mindset and the belief that you had to be tough, and also the misunderstanding of psychological imbalances and the misunderstanding of something like anxiety or depression. I think about my mom's mom, right? So that wasn't that long ago. My Nana, she suffered from depression, and especially after her husband of many years passed away. And my parents, my mom and her siblings, only one generation above me, didn't know what to do with her. They just thought something's wrong, and they literally sent her into what they call the loony bin, which is literally just like an inpatient living facility because her depression was undiagnosed and untreated. But I think generationally, we are starting to now be able to open these vulnerable conversations where we can say, we have to express these emotions. The only way through them is straight through them. And yeah, my husband was born and raised in Nassau, Bahamas. His family, his mom's family, are all deeply rooted Caribbean family. I can see that even in his mother and her family, that generational, just it's we don't feel a lot of the feels because we're I mean, at least for me, from what I can see, it's this perception that there's something wrong with us, or that we're broken, or that, again, we have to put that like strong foot forward. And if we show vulnerability, then it means that we are weak, or that we are incapable of handling our own, part of my 4-letter word, shit, right? It's like, when really that's not the case. It's not the case at all. It's just a matter of, we're all doing the best we can, given the traumas that we've all experienced in life, with the tools that we've been given. And some of us have not been given proper tools, right? So it's a matter of saying, okay, am I willing to reassess my tools for stress, or my tools that I use to cope with stress? And am I interested in maybe throwing some old rusty ones away, and like I like to say, bringing in some shiny new pink ones, if that's what you vibe with, upgrading the software that we're operating from. And it definitely all starts with awareness. Honestly, ladies, like this whole journey, if anyone's listening to this and they're like, yeah, this is a cool conversation, I'm interested, but where do I begin? You have to start by just looking in the mirror and being willing to have a little bit of that real talk with yourself. And then step 2 is to forgive. Man, you have to have compassion and forgiveness for your own experience. And then you got to choose something new. So you got to call a friend. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results, right? You got to change the pattern. You can't heal in the condition that you got sick in. So that's where I come in. You gotta call help. You gotta get a friend or a coach or a mentor or a pastor or a teacher or someone who's willing to get down in the ditch with you, who can then eventually, hold your hand and crawl out, but only when you're ready. Because I will say too, there is a lot of talk around self-development and healing around the concept of positivity. And I do believe that if you're down there in the mud, trying to jump up to like the higher vibe feeling of gratitude and positivity, it may be too out of reach. It may be a too far of a jump if you're like really down in the trenches. And that's when it's really important to get vulnerable with someone who's willing to meet you with empathy. Because if you get real with someone who's not willing to meet you there, that can be really detrimental. That can push you further into the hole, right? So being strategic with who you get vulnerable with, and, maybe recruiting help and hiring someone to get down in there with you, and y'all can roll around in the mud together until you're ready to crawl out.
I love the direction that this conversation is heading into, and we're not even like in the meat of the soup. But I really love everything that you have said up to this point. And since we're talking about self-awareness and we're talking about showing up for yourself, if you could describe yourself in 3 words, what would those 3 words be and why?
Ambitious. Not impulsive, but I like to go with the flow. So I'm trying to think of one word that just spontaneous. Yes, Latoya, thank you. Spontaneous, ambitious, and free. That's and it's the 3 words that I kind of use as like the root of all of my business, and everything about it is abundance, freedom. And there's another word there, which I can't remember right now, but abundance and freedom. So for me, living that freedom and really embodying it, I think I'll add that to one of my descriptors, I think, because I think walking the walk is important.
So Latoya and I have actually done this exercise with other guests on the show. And so for me, I will actually change it up. And so if I would describe myself in 3 words, it would be tenacious, it would be passionate, and it would be forgiving.
I love that.
Oh, I love that, Daniela. So, okay, yeah, I'll switch it up as well. It's difficult. Right? Okay, well, I like the one that Chelsea gave. So I want to also use free, understanding, and compassionate. I think I'm very compassionate, understanding, and free.
Yes, I love that. I love that so much.
And I think that what I'm realizing in this moment of quarantine is that this period in my life has forced me to really look within. And I'm learning so much more about myself and the impact that I want to leave when it comes to legacy. And I am journaling now, and I feel like that has helped me tremendously. And I'm just being more intentional about relationships that I'm building. I'm being intentional about choices that I make, what I eat, how I dress, what I look like. And so I feel that if anyone has not taken full advantage of this quarantine period to really work on self, then they're doing themselves a great disservice, because we have the time to really think and process our experiences. And for me, I am taking the time to really work on me, because I feel that, again, if I cannot serve myself, how can I be of service to other people?
Right.
That's what I've learned. That's what I've learned.
I think that the quarantine definitely has taught a lot of people that they maybe need more skills or traits than they thought they could survive on, Like for me, I picked up some new hobbies that was able to make me some extra cash. So I'm like, okay. And, other people, I'm sure so many other people had to learn another way of making some type of income, or just rely on whatever the government decide to pass out to them, like the stimulus checks, or what is it, unemployment, or whatever other forms of ways to survive. So Chelsea, so since this podcast is about trailblazing and forging a new trail for your business and personal life, how would you say you forge a new trail on a daily basis?
Ooh, well, I'll have to back it up a little bit before we can get to the daily basis, because I think a really important piece of that trail was, and actually this is something that you shared earlier, Daniela, about how we self-sabotage based on our experiences in life. And I was married and divorced already in my mid and then late 20s. And part of that, I do believe, was pushing away the thought that a marriage actually could last forever. I'm happy to report that I'm now happily remarried, and that, but that also, thank you. But part of getting to that was trailblazing, right? Was just taking, again, everything that I thought to be true about myself and the life that I was living it, I had to just throw that whole book away. And it was a process of, like I said, unlearning. So it was this process of letting go of that, chasing just the paycheck. So I love what you said, LaToya, about using this time to get creative, and same with you, Danielle, about using this time to really look in the mirror and not do it in a way of like, man, I'm trying to put pressure on myself that's unrealistic, but rather like, man, we just manifested all this time that we always complain about not having. Wow. So like, let's take advantage of that.
Right.
And when I reflect back, the trailblazing now on a daily basis was built on my non-negotiables, which came after years of throwing out everything that was no longer serving me, right? All of the beliefs, all of the values, all of the things that, again, I thought that I was striving towards because I thought that that was the definition of success, that were really just holding me back. And I was trying to conform into what society wanted me to be. Mm-hmm. And after I got divorced was really when I said, all right, honey, it's time. It's time to dig deep, because there are some things in my life that I had not healed. And it was very obvious after I got divorced. And I quit my job and I sold all my belongings, and I had to find a new home for my cat. That was like the hardest part of the whole thing. And I chose to embark on a journey. And what that journey looked like was renting a car and moving from Charleston, South Carolina, after living there for 11 years and establishing myself as a yoga teacher. And I went to college there, and my whole life was there. And I went to Fort Lauderdale on a whim, hoping and praying that the stars would align, and they would, for me to teach yoga on private super yachts. And that was 5 years ago. And that, that taking that leap, and I think blazing that new trail for myself, and just saying, you know what, I'm going to rewrite the book, and I'm going to do it right now. And I'm going to do it fearlessly, of course, with like mindfulness involved though, right? So I had a plan set up, a loose plan. And I just trusted that if I followed through on that loose plan and trusted my gut and trusted God, that timing would be divine. And I mean, you guys, it was so divine. It was bizarre almost. Like could not have been more godly timing of stepping into, and when I say godly, whatever you believe in, that power that is greater than us, I allowed myself to walk that path. And I put my own agenda to the side and just surrendered and said, okay, here I am. These are the gifts that you've given me. I'm willing to walk the path, and I'm willing to let you lead me. And y'all, I've traveled the world on private super yachts. I met my husband. I've launched a successful business, and now I'm traveling the world. We're currently in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, like just living our best life. So yeah, I mean, I say it now and it sounds kind of like fluff. I mean, there was a lot of digging that I had to do to get there, right? So I think you guys will relate to this. Like when you are blazing a new trail, it often requires clearing the path.
Yeah.
Like you got to get the shovel and, dig all the, like cut the branches. Yeah, exactly. Axe your way through the forest, because when you're in it, you can't see the forest through the trees. And again, that's where kind of like, man, if I had the hindsight to be able to hire someone at the time with the information that now I have, I might have gotten here a little bit quicker. But of course, there's no regrets. And that's why I'm passionate now to help teach other women how to do the same, to do it quickly and efficiently, because why waste all that time?
Yeah. And I really feel that sometimes, like, when we are in alignment to what the universe wants for us, things just happen so effortlessly, and it confirms that this is where we're supposed to be at that given time. So I'm so glad that everything worked out for you.
Thank you. And, I could have never predicted it. And I think that was, it shines light to another important conversation, and even to your daily trailblazing, and that's mind your expectations, right? So my expectations at the time were show up, don't give up, and, lean into my strengths. I knew I had proof in my life that I was a hard worker and I was willing to do what I had to do to make it happen. And if I just kept leaning into my strengths as an individual and a leader and an asset to a team, I just knew that whatever the outcome was, it was meant to be. So, now on your daily basis, to answer your question, LaToya, to make it a little bit more relevant to the daily trailblazing, I think it's a really important lesson to carry over, and that's to mind your daily expectations, right? So I try to build my everyday on small bricks and small wins that I can celebrate, because I know myself. And if I try to accomplish all of the big goals in one day, it most likely is not going to happen. And then inevitably, my subconscious brain, like all of ours, will seek proof of the limiting beliefs that are keeping you playing small, right?
Right.
So if I believe that, I'm not somebody who follows through on projects that I start, then I set, these big grandiose expectations for the day, and that's to wake up at 5 a.m. and go run a 10K and do all these things. And I'm like, all right, before I even wake up, I've set myself up for failure, because that doesn't work for me. Right. So this kind of like steps it into a lot of what does trailblazing mean to me? And what that means, and what I help my clients do, is to define it for you. Like, ladies, your trailblazing is going to be different than mine. So my intention is to hold space for you to define it for you, and to throw away all of the things that society has taught you of what your path should look like. Right. And then we start shoulding all over ourselves, and I should do this and I should do that. So we just throw that out the window and say, well, actually, what do I desire to do? I desire to have the freedom in the morning to sleep in if I want to, or to wake up and journal if I want to, which means in order to do that, I have to go to bed early the night before. And in order to do that, I have to reverse engineer my wind down routine, because I desire to start my clients at 10 a.m. during the day, because that's when my brain is like awake and alert. So, it's setting myself up in alignment with my desires, and then removing the conditions that are going to block me from getting to those desires, and reverse engineering what that looks like.
Mm-hmm. So something you said that was actually really poignant to me is that we have to lean into our strengths. How many of us actually compare ourselves to other people, meaning that we're so focused on what we're lacking that we forget that we're actually very strong in this area. I do it. I still do it. I have done it. And I will continue to do it, I think, until I can actually get to a place where I can fully lean on my strength and really be cemented in who I am. And that is a daily journey for me. I think it's a daily effort for everyone who's trying to become better. Is not falling into that trap of looking at what you lack and not focusing on what you're actually really, really good at. And I think that the moment that we can actually change our thinking to focus on what we're good at, I think that we can actually experience a better life. Because honestly, when we are physically stressed about our situations, about life, that affects us personally, right? And so I want to tie this back into gut health, right? And how is gut health, I guess, tied to like your life outcome, not in like a health perspective, but just more of like a mindset perspective. Like, how is someone that has bad gut health, I guess, tied to a negative outcome, if you will?
I love that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I love it. And what's coming through for me, and something that I teach my clients, is to start to reframe our relationship with our own body, right? So the aches and pains and symptoms that you might be experiencing are not because you're broken. They're not because you've done something wrong. And yes, I will say, by the way, that compare and despair cycle is what I call it. And thank you, social media, for making it so freaking easy, right? The compare and despair cycle is definitely going to prolong silencing your own strengths, right? So really reevaluating your relationship with that compare and despair cycle. And even if it means unfollowing everybody on your Instagram list and only like consuming content that is inspiring and reminding you that you are perfect. Like, not only is your divine higher self is so perfect. I want to say that's obvious. Maybe that's not obvious for many people, but I'm telling you, it's true. Like, your soul is perfect. So this ties into gut health, because what I want to share with that is that your body is also perfect. And if you are experiencing aches and pains and symptoms, it's the reframe there is, this is unexpressed desires within you. This is something within your voice. This is one of your strengths that you have suppressed, right? So, and especially in our gut. So our gut is like, maybe you've heard of the gut-brain connection, right? I can even give you a little science here, which I won't go too down that path because I can get really excited about it. But when we are being created in the womb, of course, we come from two cells that come together and then they multiply and multiply and multiply. But what science is learning, that actually the cells that actually multiply and create and form our digestive system and our brain are the exact cells that separate and create those two areas. So they're literally from the same thing. They even look the same. If you look at your intestines and your brain, they're two like gray, soft, wiggly things, which do a lot of the same things, right? So backing that up, where there is unexpressed emotions in our life, where we literally swallow down our desires and we silence our emotions, or we have unexpressed trauma in our life, we swallow them down and they land in our body. So this is kind of where the gut-brain connection comes into play, as well as like the mind-body-soul connection comes into play. So to reframe and to kind of answer from a mindset perspective, those gut issues, again, it's not because there's something wrong with you, right? We live in a society that we are sort of set up for failure from the get-go, right? As far as the processed food and the toxins in our furniture that off-gas, and in our cleaning products, and our products that we use on our skin and our hair. It's like we live in a world that we have to choose to be mindful of how we're navigating it. And if you are experiencing physical symptoms in your body, it may just be an untapped power that you haven't tapped into yet. So it can kind of shift that feeling of scarcity and lack, and there's something wrong with me and I'll never be able to figure this out, and these doctors aren't helping me, and I'm feeling like I'm going crazy down this journey of like figuring out what's wrong with me, to, okay, let me reframe this. The mindset here is actually my body's trying to communicate with me. My body doesn't have words. My body has sensations, right? The five senses: taste, touch, hear, sight, and smell, plus our sixth sense that's really trying to chime in. But if my five senses are screaming at me in some way, I'm feeling itchy, or I'm struggling to hear, or my tongue is tasting weird, right? If my five senses are off, how can my sixth sense try to move through those very visceral feelings, right? It's like, what do we have the most control over? And those are the things that I can see, touch, taste, hear, and smell, right? That is the human experience, right? But we are spiritual beings having a human experience. Right. So coming back to, to answer kind of that, the mindset of, man, we focus so much on what's going wrong. We focus so much on what we don't have. Again, this isn't your fault. This is, the society that we have been, all of us, the global collection of the 21st century, right? We live in a world where we can't see past our own lens, right? And that's not your fault. Trauma is not your fault, but it is your responsibility to heal, right? So you can start by, again, shifting that focus. It's the first question I ask every single one of my clients when we first start working together, and on every single call. What are we celebrating today? And it's different. It has a different energy. It has a different vibe than, what am I grateful for today? Now, don't get me wrong. An attitude of gratitude is life-changing, right? A gratitude practice can help us to really shift. And if you're struggling with a gratitude practice, like, I'm grateful for this clean water that I'm drinking that many people in the world don't have access to, right? Never mind the fact that I'm grateful for this technology that I'm able to connect with you on that even more people don't have access to, right? So it's not, again, even that is not a comparison thing, which sometimes gratitude can turn into a comparison thing even. Oh, but how can I be grateful for this when there's so many other people suffering? A little bit of a different topic. But when I ask, what are you celebrating today, right? It's just like, man, I'm celebrating that it's sunny outside. I'm celebrating that I was able to move and groove with my body in a way that felt good. I'm celebrating that my kid got up and brushed his teeth without me having to strangle him first, right? It brings us back to the small wins. And this is how we lay down the foundation for a strong mindset that really we do need in order to blaze that new trail, whatever it is that you may be trying to do.
Chelsea, you definitely gave me a new favorite quote. What are you celebrating today?
Yes.
That is my new favorite quote.
Yes.
One of our past visitors did give me a great quote. It was, "Done is better than perfect." And I have been living by that for everything.
Yes.
That is a good quote. And yours, what are you celebrating today?
Thank you so much. That actually, same LaToya, that exact quote, when I was launching my podcast, when I was launching my business, even every day when I'm like, okay, I got to send an email out to all these people now. It's like, done is better than perfect. And for any female entrepreneur, I'm sure we can all relate to that feeling of like, but it needs to be perfect in order to get it out there. It's like, you know what? I think people would rather have my email sent from me with a typo in it than, through not at all, right? Done is better than perfect. I love that too.
So what type of health tips do you have for our listeners?
I love this. So I have 3 really great things that are free that you can do. I say things, 3 great tips really that you can start doing literally today that are free, that don't involve changing anything about your life except for just creating awareness about these 3 things. So the first one is one of the most life-shifting things in regards to gut health for me and for most of my clients is simply honor hunger and fullness. So if you can look at, let's think about a gas tank, right? I don't necessarily need to put more gas in when I'm at half tank. I need to put it in maybe when the red light turns on. So something that I work on with my clients is learning the signs of hunger, which most of us don't even know. Like if I were to ask someone off the street right now, what's the first sign that you're getting hunger? They'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? Right? And oftentimes we think like, oh, well, I know I'm hungry when my stomach starts to gurgle. But in reality, if we dig a little bit deeper, that's probably not the first sign that my body needs food. The first sign is probably a little emptiness in my belly, or maybe it's just a fleeting thought of what's for lunch, or maybe it's a headache, right? Sometimes we start to feel, or maybe it's like a little dizziness, that low blood sugar feeling. So really starting to honor your signs of hunger and getting really real about, am I actually hungry for food? Or am I hungry for something else in my life? When I go to the refrigerator, am I hungry for sweetness? Am I hungry for intimacy? Am I hungry for comfort? Am I hungry to numb out? Like that's a thing too, right? So really honoring that. Am I hungry for some kind of emotional fix? Or am I actually hungry in my body? And what does that look like? And it goes for both levels, right? Also honoring fullness. So I'm sure you can all relate, I know I can, to that feeling of eating, like filling up the gas tank over full. Where like, all right, honey, the all you can eat buffet was really fun, but now you need to unbutton my pants because I can barely walk out of here. Right? Yeah, exactly. Which is fun sometimes, but we all kind of know that feeling of like, oh, I pushed it a little bit too far, right? So this is not about deprivation. So you should, again, honor hunger, right? This is not about being hungry. This is not about feeling satiated. This is about honoring fullness, though, and not getting to that point of too full, because then the digestive system, it's like throwing a bunch of logs on top of a campfire the next morning when the fire is not a roaring fire anymore. It's just little embers. What's going to happen if I just pile a bunch of logs on top? They're never going to burn, and they're just going to ferment, and it's going to smell. And then I wonder why I'm bloated and it smells like something just crawled up my bum and died. Well, like my digestive fire was not strong enough to burn down all the logs that I was putting on it. So honoring hunger and fullness. So the second two tips are kind of in a line with that. That's why that's the first and foremost one. Okay. So how do I honor fullness? And that is simply to chew your food. It is the most basic, simple thing that we can start doing literally right now. Our digestion starts in our mouth. It's why God gave us teeth, right? Our stomach doesn't have teeth. So if I can give my stomach acids the best opportunity to break down the food once it's there, I'm already winning, right? I'm already doing something better to fight off any toxins that I could possibly have consumed by accident, any bugs that I don't want to consume by accident. If I chew them up long enough in my mouth, then my stomach acids, in theory, are strong enough to kill off any parasites or to eliminate bacteria and to properly absorb nutrients. If I'm eating that really expensive Whole Foods meal, but I'm not chewing my food, no matter what, my digestive system is going to struggle to absorb those nutrients. So it's kind of like, why even bother? So chew your food. Guys, how many times do you think, this is always so fun, what do you think is the average chew per bite?
50.
50? Okay, let's try it. How about you? Think about this for you. When you're eating a meal, how many times do you take a bite and chew before you swallow? The average person.
Oh, for
maybe
me,
5 to 10.
I don't chew a lot. I just like chew maybe like 20 times and then I swallow. Which is
probably bullshit. Y'all are way above the game. The average is 3 chews. Chew, 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 swallow.
I think it depends on the food.
Definitely. I mean, if it's mashed potatoes, I can probably get away with it. But but when you think about what mashed potatoes looks like, it's already broken down for me, right? So during that time, chew, chew, chew. I've already got my next bite ready. Swallow. Chew, chew, chew. Swallow. Chew, chew, chew. Like, it happens so fast. So the goal is 32 bites per chew. 32 bites per chew. It feels like a lot, right? When you say it, you're like, damn.
Sounds like bubble gum.
Yeah. They're like chewing 32 times. You will be shocked. The next time you take a bite of something, please, and send me a message because I'm so curious about how it goes. Like, I wish I had an apple here. Next time I should make sure everyone has an apple next to them, because you can chew it 32 times and then swallow. And you're like, oh my God, I had no idea that was even a possibility. So that is like, those are the top 2 most basic life shifting things for gut health. And then the last one is to eat a 20-minute meal. So the last one kind of, again, backs up to how do I honor hunger and fullness, and how do I eat mindfully? How can I remember to chew my food 32 times? And that's to set a timer. So it takes 20 minutes for your brain to process that you are full. 20 minutes for that connection to make that connection. So it can be helpful to remember to slow it down and chew your food if you set a little, and I say set a timer. That's just like an awareness thing, right? Like, again, it probably in reality takes me like 4 minutes to eat a meal, if that. Maybe 5. So if I really sit down and eat mindfully and enjoy the flavors and chew my food and smell the smells, it's a lot easier to eat that 20-minute meal. So those are my top 3 life-shifting gut health tips that you can implement literally at dinner tonight.
I love it. I have a quick question, Latoya.
Yes.
So, I have a very quirky question. So, I have heard people in the Caribbean say that when you are yawning constantly, that means that you're hungry. How true is that?
Interesting. I'm not really sure. It could be one of your signs of hunger, right? And this is where I really help women tap into, like, what are my signs of hunger? So what that tells me, for example, if you're yawning a lot, maybe you have low blood sugar right now. So maybe you're kind of on like the blood sugar roller coaster where we get these like peaks and valleys where during the course of the day, we're feeling super amped up. And then other times of day, we're feeling like, man, I am just like yawning and I'm tired, right? So that could be a sign of hunger for you. For some people, it might not be, right? But that low energy, I do think for many of us is probably on that spectrum somewhere of I need energy, right? So when we look at food as energy and food as nourishment for our body, what are the signs that I'm starting to get low energy? And it makes sense that yawning definitely could be one of those signs.
Got it. Got it.
What are your thoughts about detox?
I love this. So I would love to share, if it feels okay for you ladies, that I do have, I guess, what you would consider a detox program. And the reason why I don't call it a detox is because the body, again, is made perfectly. Our liver, our kidneys, our adrenals, our stomach and intestines, and large intestines and colon are all perfectly good at absorbing nutrients and detoxing on its own. So the mindset that I like to approach health and wellness with is that if we are operating from a baseline of rest and digest, this is the opposite of fight or flight. Maybe you've heard of fight or flight, right? We all know that feeling of like stressed AF, right? Most of us operate there, right? Our lives, our families, traffic, bosses, partners, kids, whatever, in-laws, right? All of those things that, have us up here. If we are operating from a baseline of rest and digest, this is the parasympathetic nervous response, then I lost my train of thought. What was the question?
About detox.
Think about detox.
Detox. Thank you. If we are operating from a baseline of rest and digest, our body will naturally detox every day. That's why we poop every day. That is detox. And if you're not pooping every day, and if you feel uncomfortable talking about poo, sorry, not sorry. I'm a gut health coach. It was going to happen. And if you're not pooping every day, that means that your body is not efficiently detoxing. So in regards to detox, it could be helpful to amp up that system. So my program is called the Gut Health Reset, because we don't want to do anything to our body that is too harsh or too extreme. Because guess what? When we do that, it's going to bring us up to that fight or flight response. Right. If we are too harsh or too extreme, we're going to be up here. And in this state, we cannot heal. We cannot detox despite all of our teas and efforts that we're trying to do. We cannot lose weight despite all of the militant exercise that we're doing. If we are stressed AF, our results will be in vain. It's just we're not going to get that real healing. So for me, I approach detox by amping up our natural ability to do that. So what that means is, in my 14-day program, it's an inflammatory elimination protocol. It's 14 days where we say, okay, I'm going to create a safe container with a certified trained professional health coach within a group of women who are doing this with me. So it's that safe container to get vulnerable, to get real, to talk about the hardships, to share new recipes, because let's keep it real, like that support is everything, right? And to do it with each other is life-changing. And when we have that support, when we eliminate those environmental toxins, this is when our body starts to operate in rest and digest. It's kind of like the backdoor way of throwing lighter fluid on our natural digestive fire. If we can give our body the opportunity to heal naturally while we sleep and to detox detox as well naturally via our liver and our kidneys and our digestive system, I don't have to be extreme. And in fact, being extreme is going to send me the opposite way. So yeah, if anyone is interested in this, my program, I launch it 3 times a year. I'm grateful to be able to share it here with you ladies, if that feels okay. We launch May 26th. So depending on when this podcast launches, we may be in the right timing or not, but the next one will be in the fall. And that's exactly what it is. It's a safe container to get vulnerable and to heal and to really amp up our own natural ability to cleanse, to heal, and to start pooping every single day, because that's the goal. Oh,
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Are there 3 free tips that you would like to share with the audience on growing an authentic community?
Yes, I love that. I mean, community is everything, is it not? Right? Like, we are tribal people. We belong amongst each other, which, we'll also add, of course, at the time that we're recording this, we are amongst the COVID-19 pandemic, and being isolated is definitely, I think it's gotten to that point. Regardless, I'm so glad I'm not the one having to make decisions of what the right thing to do moving forward is, because it is not an easy decision. But all I know is that the community and the authenticity is so important to connect. So let's see, a couple tips on building that community. Just share your process. That is it. When I think about what I did to share my community of women, I just was authentic myself. I shared my process vulnerably, and I showed up consistently. So be authentic and be consistent. We live in a world of easy distractions. So you can never show up too often. And for your people that are meant to vibe with you, for your people that you are supposed to find, they're looking for you too. What you are seeking is also seeking you. So by showing up as yourself consistently and regularly, it's the law of attraction. You will find each other. And I guess the last tip is just to trust that by being authentic yourself, sharing your own story, rewriting your own path in a way that feels most authentic to you, and sharing that consistently, and then trusting that those 2 things are going to lead you to finding your people, then you can't go wrong. It's actually so much so where I operate that when I see someone, for example, like, I don't know, unsubscribe from my email list or something like that, I truly, and it's gotten, trust me, and this is where like the comparison thing and the feelings of I'm not good enough, it's daily work. I truly have a point where I say, you know what? Thank you for that unsubscribe, because if you're not vibing with what I'm sharing, then why, thank you for taking that empowered action to clear that clutter from your inbox, because I don't want to add clutter to your life. That's not my intention. So thank you for the unfollow or for the unsubscribe, because what that tells me is that the people that are meant for me, there's more room for them. It's the abundance mindset, at the root of it.
Yeah. And you said what you are seeking is actually seeking you. I love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Very
Thank
beautiful.
you. What is made for you will not miss you, man. That train will come storming in the front door.
Oh, there you go. And Chelsea, we can actually talk to you all day.
I know. I can't believe we're already, it went by so quick. We have to do this again.
For sure.
Definitely.
We have to. So we're now going to actually head into the segment of our show that is called Inspiration Avenue, which is where you will share a quote or adage that resonated with you in your life, and then you will share why that quote or adage was impactful.
Yes. So one of the big life-shifting books that I've ever read is called The Alchemist by Paulo Cohelo. Are you ladies familiar with The Alchemist?
I've read it.
Yes.
No, I haven't.
Latoya, you will love it. It's a quick read. It's an easy read. It's a fictional story, but it has so many deep layers of a boy who has gone on a journey to find treasure, and the journey that he had to go to in order to find his treasure. And it's just such a beautiful comparison for any woman who's really, because for me, my treasure is my true self, right? And my treasure is my most aligned, authentic self. So the comparisons of being able to go on the journey of life, and of course, hindsight is everything, to be able to reflect back and say, yeah, that all happened for this purpose, for me to be able to find my treasure. And of course, I mean, even before that, my treasure is God, and of course my husband too. But in order to find him, I had to find me first, right? So to answer your question, the quote that I have on my email and that really resonates with me is simply, a life without cause is a life without effect. And that is by Paulo Coelho. Thank you. I'm not sure if it's from The Alchemist or not. Yes. Same. A life without cause is a life without effect. And it gives me goosebumps. You know, that man I could just quote all day, every day. He's brilliant. But if we don't have a purpose in this life, you know, for me, when I reflect back, I want to be able to say that I left footprints in the sand and in people's hearts. And I want to say I lived a life on my own terms and not by anybody else's. And yeah, in order to do those, I have to have a purpose, you know, something driving me to inspire me to, you know, that to get up every day and to show up. And hopefully that effect will happen.
So many gems today. Like, I'm telling you, we can talk to you forever. Like, I had to snap for this because it's just so beautiful. It's just so beautiful.
Thank you. I love that you said that, because reading poetry is actually something that's, I have to say, next to drums, one of my other favorite like skills I wish I could just be really good at is just like reading poetry and spoken word. It is just, it speaks to my soul every time I see it live. I'm like, oh, that is just so good.
So Chelsea, please tell our listeners where they can find you online. And you talked about your gut reset program that's coming up. And so we're going to make sure to plug that into the show notes, but please tell our listeners where they can find you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you holding the container for me to be able to share my passion. And my website was recently launched. I worked really hard on it in the first few months of the year. So I've launched chelseahainescoaching.com. From there, you can go to my offerings where you can find all the info on the gut health reset. You can also dive into what it looks like to work with me one-on-one. You can also connect with me to all my social media outlets on there. Of course, on Instagram, I'm the Chelsea Haines. And I'm quite active on LinkedIn and Facebook as well, all Chelsea Haines. But my website is pretty much the one-stop shop. You can also find my podcast there. It's called Let's Start Health. So I think that's probably the main good hub that you can go to dive into all the things.
Thank you so much for sharing. And when it comes to the Life and Business Trailblazer podcast, you can find us on all social media platforms at THELB Trailblazer Pod. And if you have any questions or suggestions, please reach out to us via email. Our email is THELB trailblazerpod@gmail.com. And as we say in every single episode, embark, forge new trails, and conquer. Until next time, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.